We are the Ministry of the Real Truth, and we have come across this particular video about a week ago or something like that by this myth, vision, atheist character who likes to debunk Christianity. He was a former Christian, but he got confused, etc., etc. Understandable. So he left it, and he has this show where he has atheists, agnostics, scholars, etc., who also debunk Christianity, say, oh, it's got flaws, it's got contradictions, etc., etc. Obviously he has some hidden motive, agenda, why he invites these people on. One day bring a highly qualified theologian, someone like Dr. James D. Francisco, who has 2 doctorates, 2 PhDs in the Aramaic, probably the modern Syriac, the modern Israeli Hebrew, and possibly more. Have him on and debate him, or someone like Cliff Nectar, or someone that is worthy of a challenge, right, to go up against this guy. Do that. We recommend it. That'd be great to see. Mr. Myth Visioned. Okay, so we are trying to reply to a comment thrown at us, or comments thrown at us by a certain person under this video. Here's all the claims by this Myth Vision character, who is an atheist. This podcast. Okay, so we put up a comment in reply to watching this video, the content of this video. 10 Christian myths that show Jesus never existed, all nailed by David Fitzgerald. Well, so let's blow that bacon sausage away, shall we? To be nice. If there are these myths that show Jesus never existed at all, if there are the original ancient, very old Galilean Aramaic manuscripts dated at 1 AD, because, well, let's say they were given by Thomas to the church that he founded, the Apostolic Church of the East, in that year. Okay, we may have made a mistake saying it was dated. Okay, we're sorry about that. We apologise. Kiss, kiss, kiss. Right. It was handed over basically to this Church of the East. See, we have honesty as our best policy. If we notice a mistake, we will rectify it. Okay? Because that's what we've stated, that's what we strive to do, that's what we do. That's what we're about. Honesty is our best policy. If we see a mistake or someone brings it to our attention, we research it to see if it actually is a mistake, we will rectify it. Okay? Because honesty is our best policy, and also we believe in old-time chivalry, etc., etc. Why would we call ourselves the Ministry of the Real Truth? The whole truth, nothing but that truth in regards to the scriptures, and state in our videos that we strive to bring that whole truth, the real truth, the whole truth, and nothing but that truth of those particular original, ancient, very old Tab Asheret Old Testament manuscripts, the Lishana Artika, the sacred scribal language of God, etc., or the original Aramaic, dated at around 800 BCE, hand copied by scribes and monks in Urhai, now modern Edessa, Edessa, now modern Turkey. Yeah, and also the Galilean Aramaic, original ancient, very old Galilean Aramaic, not the modern, if there is one, modern vernacular. This is a long dead language, but it was revived by native-born Aramaic-speaking translator Victor N. Alexander from Mesopotamia, Syria. Okay, he was translating from 1800 or 1889 Bible that he received as a child, as a reward or something like that. He states in his translation project testimony statements. It's translating from that, from the Syriac Peshitta. It's basically a Bible that was put together when the American missionaries came to Umia in the 1900s or earlier, and tried to translate the King James Version into the Syriac. There was no Syriac grammar at the time, so they had to create one, as they did with the South American tribe. They went there and tried to convert. They couldn't convert them because there was no word in their language for hell. So they had to create one and then demonstrate, well, if you put your foot in the fire, you get burnt. That's the same sort of thing, right? In order to convert them. Deceit, trickery, whatever, to win them over to their Western Christianity, right? So, we have done a video on an interview with a priest from the Diocese of the Apostolic Church of Eastern California, and he's interviewed and he actually says what we're going to touch on, right? Okay, so let's go back to this. It says 10 Christian myths that show Jesus never existed at all, nailed by David Fitzgerald with this podcast with this myth vision character, right? So let's blow that bacon sausage away, shall we? If there is Christian myths, 10 Christian myths, etc., that show Jesus never existed at all, bring it on. If there is, are the original ancient, very old Galilean Aramaic manuscripts given to the church, the Apostolic Church of the East, founded by Thomas? There we go, we corrected it. Around 1 AD. Hidden and preserved by the original ancient, very old Apostolic Church of the East that Thomas founded. Yeah. We weren't too sure it was Adai or Thomas, but we come to of late realise that it was Thomas, and he sent Adai to King Akbar the Black in his country, etc., right? With a letter and a drawing or painting of Christ, and he got healed supposedly. Okay, so the disciple of Jesus, Thomas is the disciple of Jesus, along with the help of Bartholomew and Peter, keeper or Cephas, with a rock, who handed them over to the high priest appointed to that church, or appointed to that church, as testators. What's that? A testator? Someone who testifies. A testifier is basically someone who leaves a last will and testimony. It's not effective until he passes away. He dies, right? And then it comes into effect. But most these days used someone who testifies. Okay, so these were people that hung with Jesus 24/7, 365 throughout his 3.5 year mission. Those who testified to seeing, hearing, witnessing what Jesus the Christ did. They saw him doing his thing, saying his thing, and then being nailed to the tree or stake or cross. Tacitus, the Roman orator, historian, states that he saw records of the, we knew of records of the Christos, put on trial and executed by order of Pontius Pilate, prefect, or whatever you want to call him, imperator, whatever the word is. Then this atheist myth vision is a myth staken full of it, as has an intention to undermine the scriptures, etc. So we tell it how it is. Okay? It's nothing personal, we just tell it how it really is. Sorry, buddy, there's just too much evidence verifying Jesus the Christ existed. He actually existed. His myth visions, beloved buddy, top theologian scholar Bart D. Ehrman, even stated on his Misquoting Jesus lecture from years back that he believed Jesus actually existed. He's insistent that he existed. But he's not the Christian version of Jesus we have today. A gimme, gimme, gimme all I want Saviour. Okay? Fulfill all my needs, gimme, gimme money, because I'm promised money if I give all my money away through tithes, planting a seed, all that sort of stuff, by these prosperity churches. Myth vision was a former Christian who fell away due to possibly the Americanized English Bible versions he's reading in the baloney, or he's read in the baloney sold him about those modern translations from the Roman Catholic Church put up by the American Bible Society and similar. Then there's the guy who was an atheist who many others who researched all he could on Jesus and realised he indeed existed, etc. Then converted from atheism to a believer, or being an atheist to a believer. Just because one man, a so-called expert, writes a book saying here's the proof, the facts, that he's right on the button. It doesn't actually mean that he's right on the button. Okay, in regards to this person saying, "Oh no, Jesus never existed at all," here's the proof. It doesn't mean he's actually right, because he could be totally biased, prejudiced, twisting the scriptures in order to put across his atheistic stance, perhaps as a paid shill. So is this myth vision the same? Is he totally bias free, prejudice free, and not having a hidden motive to twist the scriptures, to stomp all over it, doodle all over it, say it's fraudulent, this and that, to put across his atheistic stance? Is this guy a paid shill? Is getting paid by somebody to do this? Could be a clickbaiter, you know. Oh, look, I'm getting lots of clicks. Oh, I'm making lots of money. I'll keep putting out these claims, and I've got an audience, and I'm getting rich. Okay. So this person replied to us and said, Galilean Aramaic manuscripts dated at 1 AD. We've just realised the wording is wrong, so we will change it. Our apologies, Mr. Commutator. It would have been received, yeah, not dated, yeah, received by the Apostolic Church of the East that Thomas founded, given to these high priests. Their church or their congregation was destroyed, so they ran. Somebody picked it up, and then they went across lands and they created this apostolic, or he founded this Apostolic Church of the East, and he gave them to these priests, who then hid them for 2,000 years from Roman Emperor Constantine, because they're under persecution, and the Roman Catholic Empirical Church, etc., for 2,000 years. So they were hidden and preserved, therefore they were hidden and preserved, therefore preserved for over 2,000 years, not tampered with, as verified by former patriarchate of the Apostolic Church of the East, Mar Isai Shamum, who Andrew Gabriel Roth, a Messianic Jew, had on his website, the AramaicScriptures.com, the statement, the testimony of this Mar Isai Shamun in 1957, who said, from the day that they were given by the blessed hands of the disciples, they remained intact. They were never translated. Well, at some later date, obviously, from what we found, they were translated into the Koine Greek. They weren't tampered with. They weren't translated into other foreign languages like Chinese, Egyptian, or anything like that. Yeah, even though in different parts of Africa there were similar churches, or churches that came out from this Apostolic Church over time. And so these people are testifying, and also that Mar Isai Shamun stated this, and also Victor N. Alexander, and Andrew Gabriel Roth, and there's others that can verify it as well. Even the Assyrian patriarchates, okay, they know the history better than anyone else because they're native born Syrians or Assyrians, right? They don't like to talk about their history, but they know it. Okay, a lot of people don't want to know their history, the Assyrians, etc. They think we've been told it's too painful, it's too horrid, etc., etc. And it's talking about the history from the very beginning, through their martyrdoms, their persecutions by the different factions, Roman Catholics, the Empirical Church, the Mongols, Genghis Khan, the Mongols, the Tamerlanes, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, the Kurds, and so forth. Okay, so the Galilean Aramaic manuscripts were handed over to that church by Thomas, who then hid and therefore preserved them for over 2,000 years. So this person is saying this is before Jesus was supposedly born. So what's it supposed to be proving? Well, this person obviously doesn't know the chronology, the time, right? The timeline. Because if he's born at, say, 6 AD, okay, or he's born at 6 AD, 4 AD, whatever is claimed, then 1 AD comes later on, doesn't it? We got confused with this as well. We made that mistake. Yeah, but that's what we realised, okay? That we got it wrong. But yeah, so he was born, say, 6 AD, 4 AD, right about the 14th, 15th reign of Augustus Caesar, who was deified by decree by the Senate as a god, a son of the god, right, or son of the gods, and he had to be worshipped and all this sort of stuff. We've done an exclusive video on that. So he was born in that area, and it was actually stated, Revelation 13, 14, something like that. I did in this video, where apparently there was an antichrist, or a replacement, a counterfeit, a fake, who was a Caesar Augustus, okay, during the ministry of Jesus the Christ. Okay, because supposedly Jesus said to his disciples, or those around him, possibly his disciples, you know that there's an antichrist, or the antichrist is coming, the antichrist is coming. Oh, in fact, he's already here, and that's what these original ancient Galilean Aramaic translations of the book of Revelation say and indicate in the footnotes provided by Victor N. Alexander, the native-born Aramaic speaker, translator from Bet Narain, or Mesopotamia, Syria. So the Galilean Aramaic manuscripts weren't before Jesus, that's right, because until he came along they didn't write the stuff about Jesus down, because he hadn't yet appeared. But after he had, after Jesus or Yeshua Mashiach was born and he started to minister, that's when they started to write them all down. Yeah, and the Galilean Aramaic is an offshoot of the original ancient very old Tab Asheret, or Aramaic, and the Lishana Atika Cypriea, the sacred scribal language of God. But throughout, from the Brita, or Genesis 1:1, to the last verse in Revelation, was it 22:21 or something, it speaks of him. He even declared it to the Pharisees. It says, you're looking for me. The scriptures tell you from the beginning to where he was standing in front of the Pharisees about me. It speaks of me. I'm spoken of in there. Yet I'm standing right in front of you, professing to you I am that Son of God, etc., etc., sent by God, etc., etc., but you don't believe me, because by the time they had their texts, their manuscripts, for some reason they either got corrupted or they got lost or something like that. It's on a translation project of Victor N. Alexander. And they also set their dates wrong, like it went from AD 0 or something like that, supposed to go to 1, and they used 0 again. It was something like that. That's just what we've come across. You have to go do the research on that yourself. Okay, so throughout these scriptures it spoke of him, Old Testament and prior to him coming in the New Testament. In the book of Tacitus, he stated he saw records he was around long after the Christ was dead. This is when Tacitus was around, say about 40 years after the Christ had died, rose again, ascended, and was in the kingdom of heaven. And he saw records that was procurated. Well, okay, mistake again, sorry, apologise, kiss, kiss, kiss. Okay, he knew of these records of his procurator. He was aware of them. Pontius Pilatus, who put on trial a certain Christos and then had him executed. The Roman historian and senator Tacitus referred to Jesus, his execution by Pontius, his trial and execution by Pontius Pilate, and the existence of early Christians in Rome in his final work, Annals, written around AD 116, book 15, chapter 4 to 4. Okay? And I think it's 44. That's correct. Anyway, it's here, right? There's a link to that here. We also have the book of Annals and the Histories by Tacitus, the Reader's Digest version. Tacitus, not the only non-Christian writer of the time who mentioned Jesus and early Christianity. Other possible references include those by Flavius Josephus, who's not that reliable, but Urban says, like there's Christian undertones being added to it. There's a different style that's not his, etc., etc. So he's deemed unreliable. Pliny the Younger and Suetonius. The last of these, Suetonius, also seems to mention the persecution of Christians under Nero. He blamed the Christians for the burning of Rome, when all the time it was that nasty so and so. But Domitian or Vespasian or someone like that was worse. As Tacitus says, even he had to turn his head and not look at what that particular guy was doing, right, to the people, his own people and others. As with almost all ancient Greek and Latin literature, no original manuscripts of the Annals exist. The surviving copies of Tacitus' major works derive from two principal manuscripts known as the Medician manuscripts, which are held in the Laurentian Library in Florence, Italy. The second of them, is that Plutarch? 68-2, is the only one containing books 10 to 16 of the Annals, is the oldest witness to the passage describing Christians. Scholars generally agree that this codex was written in the 11th century at the Benedictine Abbey of Monte Cassino, I guess that's in Italy, and its end refers to Abbas Reinaldus, who was most probably one of the two abbots of that name at the abbey during that period. The Annals, passage 1544, which has been subjected to many scholarly analysis, follows a description of the 6-day Great Fire of Rome that burned much of Rome in July 64 AD. The key part of the passage reads as follows. Translation from Latin by A.J. Church and W.J. Broderick, 1876. That's the Reader's Digest version that we have. Established facts. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay. And he writes, this person writes, yeah, could have... Oh, okay, who was that? Was that me replying to him? Yeah. Okay, so then we reply with... Yeah, could have the dates wrong, as we apologise. The dates, they weren't given, or they weren't written as a date. That's probably the date they were given to those high priests in the church by Thomas, the blessed hands of Thomas, as the Isai Shamun, the patriarch of 1957 of that church, testified in intact and all that sort of stuff. Since the day they were given, they remained intact, basically. Yeah, so I could have my dates wrong. Then there's making an apology there for that. Admittance, right? If Jesus was born, say, the 6th or 4th century, was the Apostolic Church founded in 1 AD? See? And that's when we founded by Thaddeus or Thomas. Okay? So that's when we later realised, oh yeah, okay, if Jesus is born in the 6th or 4th century, then after he dies, is resurrected, ascends to heaven, etc., those disciples are still around. So their church, their house, their congregation where they dwelt, they met, worship, all that sort of stuff was destroyed. They went across land. Someone picked up these texts and ran with them, right, to that Church of the East, or founded that Church of the East, and then gave them to the high priest there, who then hid them and preserved them from the Roman Imperial Church, etc., and Constantine and so forth. The Church of the East is that ancient church which developed in the regions of Assyria, Babylonia and Persia, today's Iraq, ancient Iraq, and western Iran, to the east of the Roman Byzantine Empire. Note this, it is an apostolic church. It's established by the apostles St. Thomas, St. Thaddeus, and with the help of St. Bartholomew apparently, and St. Peter, the chief of the apostles, added his blessing to the Church of the East at the time of his visit to the sea at Babylon in the earliest days of his church. The chosen church which is at Babylon, and Mark, my son, salute you, greet one another with a holy kiss. 1 Peter 5:13-14. The Aramaic Disciples New Testament, translated by Victor E. Alexander. There's a comparison here, right? This is your from some website, right? Okay, and this is the Aramaic Disciples New Testament. 13. My son Mark and the chosen church of Babylon say shalom. 14. Say shalom to each other with a holy kiss. Shalom to all who are in the Messiah. Amen. During the first century of the Christian era, the Church of the East was established in the city of Edessa. It was actually Urhai. Okay, well, the Greeks called it Edessa. It's now modern Turkey. In the northernmost Aramaic-speaking city-state of the Eastern religion. I think this priest deacon of the Diocese of California actually said it was southern, not really sure, can't remember. Reference to this can be found in the writings of the historian Eusebius, another one that can't really be trusted. They say he exaggerated a lot. This is the claims of your top scholars like Bart D. Ehrman, etc. Ecclesiastical History, Book 1, Chapter 13. In 280, the Church of the East was officially organised under the Catholicos Patriarch Mar Papa Bar Gagai of Cilicia Siphon, and in 1410 it renounced all subjection to the See of Antioch. The eastward movement of the church saw Christian communities flourishing in what is now Afghanistan and South Central Asia. and there's a link to that. Okay. So this person replied and said, Tacitus also wrote the speech the Caledonian general Calculus gave to his army before their battle with the Romans at Mons Scopus. He's trying to come at us with something to like stomp on us, right? To undermine us, which is, he says, a very stirring speech. You haven't come across it yet, but it's probably in one of those books, the Annals of Histories. Was Tacitus in the enemy camp of the Chalcedonians to hear the speech? No. Was Tacitus even in Caledonia? No, we don't know, because we haven't really read it for a while or extensively. There's a hell of a lot of information in that book, right? 2 volumes of it, heaps of books. Tacitus also said Emperor Vespasian miraculously healed the sick. No, not too sure on that one. We thought it would be, it could have been that guy. Yeah, it could have been right. We thought that it was Ptolemy Soter. He deified himself as a god, or claimed himself as a god, made a statue of religion, all this sort of stuff. But he was a neglectful god, apparently. He'd rather chase a woman or something like that, according to the histories that we found, right? Yeah, we think it might have been Vespasian who did that, because there's a section where a guy came to him with a withered hand or something wrong with him, leg or something like that, and this centurion or whatever witnessed that this guy supposedly healed him or something, right? Yeah. So this guy tries to be cheeky and says, still think Tacitus as a source is ironclad. Well, he's better than your Josephus, he's better than your Herodotus, etc. So he's more reliable. It's been verified that he's more reliable. Okay, so we replied to that person. Tacitus, an orator of great school, etc., was relaying what he had heard in his day. Okay? He heard what was going around about what went down before his day or earlier. Because don't forget, he was born 40 years after Christ died, was resurrected, ascended to heaven, etc. And possibly when all those, a lot of those disciples had died off, or were martyred or something like that. As he did with the origin story of the Idea, or the origins of the Jews. He was giving several versions that he had heard, rumours, claims, etc. Okay? He also speaks on Serapis Christus, who he stated was deemed a god who neglected his godly duties in favour of other things. And he was also recording what he had seen in the records of his procurator, Pontius Pilate, or he heard about, right? He knew, he had the knowledge that Procurator Pontius Pilate, or Imperator, whatever they called him, who put on trial the Christus and had executed years after the fact, because he was born 40 years after Christ died, resurrected, and was ascended to heaven, right, etc. He was more reliable than Flavius Josephus, whom it was said his records, antiquities, etc. were tampered with, or of another writing style, not his own. Herodotus, the said father of all histories, was an exaggerator. So these two are not as reliable as Tacitus, who, being a Roman, would have been very Rome-oriented, political, and therefore politically orientated. And trying to make a troll like, lol, stick, you failed, lol, bada bam, bada boom, lol. Okay, nothing personal, it's just, that's our comeback, right? Okay, and then we replied to him, the Roman historian and orator Tacitus referred to Jesus as executed by Pontius Pilate and the existence of early Christians in Rome in his final work, Annals, written around AD 116, book 15, chapter 44. The scholarly consensus is that Tacitus, this reference to the execution of Jesus by Pontius Pilate, is both authentic and of historical value as an independent Roman source. There you go. The scholarly consensus, all these top scholars, etc., come to the conclusion that verifying that Tacitus' reference to the execution of Jesus by Pontius Pilate is both authentic and of historical value as an independent Roman source. However, Tacitus does not reveal the source of his information. That's his downfall, right? There are several hypotheses as to what sources he may have used, and there's the link to their sources, right? We always provide a link to the sources. We don't just go blah 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 and nothing to back it up, or else it'll be just simply hearsay, right? Just someone talking a whole lot of hot air. The Galilean Aramaic manuscripts texts are proving the existence of the Christ, as the writings were of from one of the 12 who were around him 24/7, 365 during the 3 years or 3.5 years of his ministry, and were verified, handed over to the high priest of the original ancient very old apostolic church of the East, as verified by the head patriarch in 1957, Ma'iso Shimon. Go ask an Assyrian, a member of that church, an Assyrian priest who know the histories. Go find Ashachiri on Internet Archive. Get a hold of that guy. We did, but he said he had problems contacting us. Don't know why. Don't know how that happened, right? But anyway, he knows all that stuff. Okay? A lot of Assyrians know that stuff, but they just don't want to talk about it, so they won't reveal it to you. But if you have a native-born Syrian friend, he might be able to tell you that, right? All about that, if he knows the history. Now go argue this fact with a native-born Assyrian or Syrian-speaking priest of that revived church in the East, or a native-born Syrian who attends that church's mass, church meetings, and come back and buy me chocolates, take me out to dinner and dancing as an apology. So it's just a bit of humour there, right? To lessen the negative comebacks or whatever, or negativity, whatever. Okay, so again, we said to him, he said, called Christians by the populace, Christus from whom the name had its origin. The passage states, called Christians by the populace, by the population, by the people, Christus from whom the name had its origin, not what they believed as this guy claimed. Okay, not that they, based on that they believed in this guy, right? They were called Christians by the populace, the pagans, the Romans, etc., those who weren't Christians. Most scholars hold the passage to be authentic and that Tacitus was the author. Boom, 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 there you go. Suggesting that the passage may have been a complete forgery have been generally rejected by scholars, your top scholars, your theologians, your Bart Ehrmans, etc. Scholars such as Bruce Chilton, Craig Evans, Paul Eddy and Gregory Boyd agree with John Mayer's statement, it's not John Mayer the singer, that despite some feeble attempts to show that this text is a Christian interpolation in Tacitus, this is what the Smith Vision would probably try to do, and others, the passage is obviously genuine. Boom! Depending on the sources Tacitus used, the passage is potentially of historical value regarding Jesus, early Christianity, and its persecution under Emperor Nero. Huh? So what you got to say to that? Okay? Oh, Tacitus. Just read. Depending on the sources Tacitus used, which he doesn't indicate, the passage is potentially of historical value regarding Jesus, early Christianity, and its persecution under Emperor Nero. Regarding Jesus, Van Voorst states that of all Roman writers, Tacitus gives us the most precise information about Christ. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay? And then we replied, and this is probably a really long one, no, it's short, to the same person. The manuscripts or texts were the writings of one of the 12 disciples who had to be literate, right? Possibly Matthew, said to be a tax collector, possibly Greek. The tax collector, so he had to know how to read, write, spell, do addition and other math, who was said to be a Greek, or claimed to be a Greek by others. Peter, James, etc. probably didn't care for literacy or learning Greek, as they were Galilean fishermen by trade and had people to feed. That was their trade, so they went out in their boats with their nets and they caught fish. They had no time for all that. You had to be a certain person who had a certain opportunity to actually go and get scholared, basically, get an education, all that sort of stuff. Most people were illiterate, and they just made their hopped on a boat with their nets, went fishing, cut up fish, cook food, whatever they did. They didn't worry about all that sort of stuff. Okay, that was for the elite, those who were introduced, who had that privilege, right, to be educated, become literate, all that sort of stuff. Okay, but this guy Matthew, if he was Greek, he spoke Greek, he may have eventually learned the Galilean Aramaic after hanging out with the 12 for the 3.5 years of Jesus' ministry. When the church at Jerusalem was, okay, we got this wrong here, that it was burned or it was destroyed. Somewhere along the way we picked up that it was burnt. But it was actually destroyed. Someone picked up these texts and ran with them and eventually handed them over to the appointed high priest of the original ancient very old church of the East. And they were instructed by Peter, Bartholomew, Addai and Thomas, and all they heard and saw and witnessed, and were instructed on what to do exactly. Okay, and they had to do exactly what they were taught by these disciples. And that Assyrian or Syrian Church of the East priest, the Syrian Church of the East priests have done that all through the centuries, regardless of the persecution, martyrdom, etc., etc. So now go do real research on the real history of the Assyrian church, its priesthood, etc., etc. Ask a native born Syrian who knows the real histories, etc., etc. Okay, that's what we recommend. Okay, so he comes back at us and he goes, oh, they're called Christians by the populace. Populace considered them... Okay, is that us? Oh no, he's coming at us, yeah. They're called Christians by the populace. Populace considered them a Jewish sect at that time. Well, they were Galileans. Okay, under the Jewish Mosaic law of the Pharisees, etc. But they were Galileans. Didn't a man say to Peter when Christ said to him, you deny me 3 times when the rooster crows, all that sort of stuff, right? He said, hey, this man is one of them. He's a Galilean, like him, right? Like Christ, who was a Galilean, right? He spoke Galilean Aramaic. Okay? So, they were Galileans, fishermen, etc., under the Pharisees, the Mosaic law, etc., etc., at the time. So the populace wouldn't be calling them Christians either. Okay, this is a later thing that came with the translations, probably from the Latin Greek, which was a loan word, right? Christos, the Romans used, yeah, or adopted, and referred to them with the snidey remark, slaves to the Christus, right? Okay, so the populace, or the people, wouldn't be calling them Christians either. Most scholars hold the passage to be authentic and that Tacitus was the author, and some other doubt it is written by Tacitus, till others find it authentically written by Tacitus, but he's just writing what Christians of his time believed, which doesn't prove the historicity of Jesus. It's not like he went to Judea to fact check them. Why would he, when he knew of the records of Pontius Pilate putting that their leader, the Christos, to trial and then to death? Okay? So he goes on about these top scholars that we talked about, and he goes on about he's trying to find something here that he can find fault with us, right? He says Evans works for the seminary. Evans works at the Theological University. Boyd, pastor, mayor, priest. Yeah, great unbiased sources you got there, lol. He thinks it's funny. Okay, but they, regardless, said blah blah blah, as we already mentioned, right up the top here. Okay. So what? They go to a theological college. So what? They read the Americanized modern Bible versions. They have mistranslations, interpolations, etc. They're still more expert than I am, more expert than this person is, right? Okay. So they are recognized theologians, scholars, and they have verified, okay, despite some feeble attempts to show that this text is a Christian interpolation of Tacitus, the passage is obviously genuine. Okay, so this guy is trying to undermine those sources, right? Those people. Okay, 3 times we have put there that these people, regardless of their history, they could be a paedophile or whatever. We don't know that. That's why we go behind the scenes and check out if they are. Is there some dirt that you know you can show on them, right? Okay, but we didn't do that in this case. Okay, but we could. Okay, and it could say, well, this guy, this particular guy, Chilton, Evans, whoever, is regarded as someone you can trust. Okay, their statements, right? So this guy, who probably has no qualifications at all, is trying to make out that these guys are not as good as we stated. Depending on the sources, Tacitus used the passages potentially being operated with. So he's trying to find flaws in the wording, right? He's trying to find something he can stick to us, right? And if his source were local Christians, maybe not. Doesn't prove any. See, he's trying to undermine it. See? He's trying to undermine it. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to make something stick. Okay. So we come back at him with the manuscripts or texts were the writings of one of the 12 disciples who were literate. Possibly Matthew said to be a text. We already covered that, right? And so forth. Well, actually, maybe he's coming at us. Yeah. The manuscript or text were the writings of one of the 12 disciples, because this is what we read. So he's trying to use what we produced, what we showed as evidence to undermine us. Okay? Because this guy has a hidden motive. It's so obvious. Okay? You can see it, right? In favour of his atheism, right? And his love of this guy. right? Okay, he's a fan of that guy. Okay, so they don't want to know the truth. Okay, if you present them the truth, they'll undermine it, they'll debunk it, even if it's proven, right? The evidence, there's established facts, the evidence has proven itself evident, etc., etc. If you had the number one trusted theologian, scholar, recognised by all, recommended, like what's his name, Barty Ehrman is or was, right? Yet he's an agnostic atheist that'll be like, yeah, but knows the truth, right? You know, when you find that he's actually in error, etc. Okay, so they always undermine that truth. No matter how much truth, how much established fact, evidence you provide, evidence that proves itself evident, they will always try to undermine it. Okay, because that's their agenda, that's their motive. They want to trod you underfoot because you believe in this. It's like the scripture, right? It says those who are in the dark don't want to come to the light because they'll be exposed, right? We don't know what their history is. They could be like a womanizer or whatever. We're not saying that this person is, but you know, they're living in darkness, they're living in sin. They don't want to come to the light, they don't want to come to the truth, right? In case they get exposed, right? That's basically it. Yeah, they've got something to hide. We've got nothing to hide. Yeah? Okay, and he tries to say there were no churches in Jerusalem during Jesus' time, but he doesn't understand its dual meaning, as we'll get to in the recently commentary, right? That we reply to him. Okay. So yeah, he's again trying to use our wording to undermine us. Okay, so he asks, what church in Jerusalem? There were no churches in Jerusalem during Jesus' time. How does he know? Was he there? Has he got, where's the source? Where's the source that says there's no churches there? He hasn't provided it. So it's just hot air. Hearsay. It's all fluff, right? Okay? We're telling it how it is. Okay, so tell him go do the real research of the Assyrian church, its priesthood, etc., 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 right? And he tries to say, again, undermining us, saying how it started is unknown and it wasn't entrenched in the area until the mid-second century. Total rubbish, because the live interview or the video interview of the priest of the Apostolic Church, he details it as follows, right? Okay, so this is a load of rubbish. Okay, this part here, history says how it started is unknown. Rubbish. Okay, it's total fluff. Yeah. So we replied to him and said there was a church, according to the evidence in a statement of historical evidence voiced by the priest in the video we did, the video interview of Ma Royal and Stephen Missick. And we didn't really listen to the Missick because he kept going on about his movie of the acts with Thaddeus and Lorenzo and Lamas and all that. It got a bit boring. It could also mean the congregation, the gathering of believers, the body of a spiritual church. It has two meanings, right? It's not just church with a building, with a roof, bells, piano, organ, whatever, right? Okay, it's got dual meanings, which also can mean the congregation, the gathering of believers, the body of a spiritual church. This is our understanding, right? The 12, the 70, the 72 apostles selected by Jesus himself, sent out 2 by 2 to all countries, etc. Them that were told to go to and teach that good news were part of a church, quote, a church not built by hands. Yeah? As Jesus supposedly stated in Scripture, he was hinting, right? Victor N. Alexander, the translator, seems to be hinting at that, but he didn't give great detail on that. And that Peter was to be the rock, the foundation of that church in Jerusalem at the time. In Jerusalem. We have read of Victor N. Alexander's translation project the same statement that there was a church in Jerusalem that was destroyed. We just couldn't remember how it was. There's so much of it on that down website, we'd have to go looking for it again. The original ancient apostolic church of the East was founded by Thomas in the 1st century AD. See, we thought it was Adai, we weren't too sure. Because you've got different people saying it was Adai, someone else saying it was Thomas, blah, blah, blah. So we finalised that it was Thomas. In the 1st century AD, after Christ had died, was resurrected, ascended to the kingdom of heaven, and left them alone, but with the power of the Holy Spirit. And according to the testimony of former Patriarchate Mar Isai Shimon, in 1957, the texts that were handed over by the blessed hands of the disciples, i.e. Thomas, or Mar Thoma in the Syrian, were hidden and therefore preserved by the original ancient church of the East for 2,000 years, and the revised version of that church still hold on today. So they got the Eastern Syriac Peshitta and these original ancient Tab Asheret manuscripts, as they were from the day given, handed over by Thomas, had never been translated, altered or tampered with, or translated into any foreign language. But we found that at some later date they possibly translated into Koine Greek, which is akin to the Aramaic. So if you translated it into the nearest English equivalent, it would be pretty much the same. Okay, all the rest, nah. Okay, or anything that came after that was just Roman Catholic, originated the Mother Church, and printed and published, put out by the American Bible Society with their pamphlets, which are full of lies. We have a video of Brian with the beard and the glasses who verifies that, because he has done the research. Okay, so these were intact as they were from the day given, handed over by the blessed hands of Martoma or Thomas, never translated until later on, probably into the Koine Greek, altered or translated into any foreign language, as they had no need to, as they spoke the scriptures via their liturgy to their people who came to their church mass. That old Galilean Aramaic, long dead language, so they create a modern vernacular or dialect, this modern Syriac, and they use that, because you can use the root words of that language to translate that old dead language, right? The original ancient, very old, not spoken anymore Aramaic, Galilean Aramaic. Okay, so they're speaking that language, right? They're reading it through their liturgy to the people who attended the church. Okay, their mass, right? Because they're native-born Syrians, you can understand that, and apparently they do incorporate a bit of Arabic in there these days. Okay, so it's exclusively for that church, that apostolic church of the East. Okay, it wasn't for Japanese or Gentiles or Romans or anything like that till later on, when they went to their different countries and they were accepted by them, and they allowed them to put up churches there, India, China, possibly Japan, right? And they were well received there until later on. They were persecuted by a new lot of caliphates, looked upon as heretic, I guess because they didn't come under Islam, you know. They were pushing them probably to drop theirs and become Muslims or something like that, and they got persecutions, and they ran with their texts and kept doing what they were trained by the disciples to do, the traditions, the customs, etc., etc. Okay, that they were taught by, say, Thomas, Edai, Bartholomew and Peter, yeah? And so forth. So they kept to that tradition. Okay, so the original apostolic church of these churches was founded by Thomas in the 1st century AD. That's after Jesus had died, resurrected, and ascended to heaven, right? He was born in the 6th century, 4th century, whatever, AD, and then later on he dies, right? Goes up to heaven or whatever. So this is when they're all alone in their church, or their place of congregation gets destroyed. Okay, so the original ancient apostolic church of the East church was founded by Thomas in the 1st century AD, and according to the testimony of former patriarchate, he's the head of that church at the time, Mar Isai Shimon, in 1957, later assassinated by a Kurd, or somebody like that, some relation of his, at the doorstep of his home, right? The texts that were handed over by the blessed hands of the disciples, Thomas or Martoma, were hidden and therefore preserved by the original ancient church of the East for 2,000 years, and are intact as they were from the day given, never been translated, altered, or translated into any foreign language, as they had no need to, as they spoke the scriptures via their liturgy to their people who came to the church mass. So it's exclusively for their church members, right? This statement used to be up on Andrew Gabriel Roth's website, and he's the source there, the AramaicScriptures.com, but has been removed for some unknown reason. But it can be found in one of his Aramaic ebooks in full. We came across that. We have to go look for it again. And also can be verified, we probably got on hard to something, and also can be verified by the native Aramaic speaking translator Victor E. Alexander from Mesopotamia, Syria, and other translators to that effect. Atheists, or people who neither are atheists who either are too lazy to do the real research, feel it easy to just do, undermine Christians or people over them in regards to that, the Christians and the scriptures, as have a hidden motive or ego, right? A big ego, right? Because when you expose them to that truth, they get all nasty, they get all silly, they act like little kiddies, right? Not mature. Some do, and that's very rare, but most of them, for some reason, end up like little kids, right? Acting like little kids. So if not originally called Christians, what were they then? And why did they choose that particular name? He says why they weren't called Christians in those days. Okay, well they actually were probably by the Romans. Okay, slaves to Christ, or the Christos or whatever. Right? Okay, so we ask, so if not originally called Christians, what were they then? And why did they choose that particular name? Can you tell us what that name was then? No, we don't. You could. This person could. As many we've come across don't have a clue, or were never aware of what their actual name was, if they used it, right? We know the name they used, preferred, because we found it through the translation project, the translation of Victor Alexander, who speaks many dialects of the Aramaic. A little bit of Norwegian, because he's got a Norwegian wife who starred in Hollywood productions like Star Quest with Burnt Water, all that sort of stuff, right? Christian, Christ. It's got IA there. Do you know what this is? Any idea what that is? Yeah? Tell us about that. What is that? Yeah? Why is it in amongst that word? Right? Christ, E-N. Right? Why is it there? You can't tell us, right? He doesn't know. Probably doesn't know. Christian is the Latin to English name Christus. Christus is a Latin to English name. Christus or Christos used by the Romans, as Tacitus states in his histories as them being those who had as their leader the Christus. Okay? It doesn't say those who believed in the Christus. Right? That's total garbage. We have the book. Okay? We have the book of Tacitus. We can verify that to expose this person as a liar. Let us find it. Let us find it. Okay, this is Tacitus, the Annals and the Histories, Britannica Great Books. This is volume 15 or book 15, and we'll just find it to verify that, so you don't think we're full of. Okay, I might need something to see it because it's such damn small writing, right? Here it is. Here it's the Annals, page 168, 44, 15. Is it 15? Yeah, book 15, 43 to 51, page 168, and it says, consequently, to get rid of the report, Nero fastened the guilt and inflicted the most exquisite tortures on a class hated for their abominations, or their blasphemies, their nonsense, because they didn't worship and do the bull's sacrifice, they worshipped the emperor, they refused to do that sort of stuff, right? Called Christians by the populace. Okay, so it's Nero. This is Tacitus saying about Nero. Called Christians by the populace, or the peoples, right? The population. Christus, from whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators. This is Tacitus talking. Okay? Pontius Pilatus, and a most mischievous superstition, thus checked for the moment, again broke out not only in Judea, the first source of the evil, but even in Rome, where all things hideous, shameful from every part of the world find their centre and become popular. So these Romans were doing all these dirty things. Okay? That was the place that it was all going down. Right? Orgies, everything. Okay, we recommend the film, but it's very, very pornographic. Yeah, but it's hailed as the most accurate depiction of what Rome was actually like by Bob Guccione. Yeah, you know who that guy is? Founder of Penthouse. He died broke. Billionaire, millionaire, whatever. He died broke, penniless. Yeah. So that's what Nero did. He fastened the guilt of Rome being burnt upon he inflicted the most exquisite tortures on a class hated for the abominations called Christians by the populace. Christus, from whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilate. Okay, so what we come to realise is that Augustus Caesar was deified by decree by the Senate. This is what we found in the histories. They said you have to be deified, etc., etc. So he ran with it, and he had statues, images of his likeness put up around, and people had to worship it, all this sort of stuff. And if they didn't, they were persecuted. Many Christians refused to do that, right? Because they thought they knew better, or they knew better, right? Okay. So that's a word. They've borrowed a loan word, a Greek Latin loan word, a Latin Greek loan word. Okay. And they sneeringly referred to them as slaves to the Christos, or the Christ. Okay. So there it is there. So there's the evidence there that he didn't say those that believed, as this person claimed. See? So these people, that name Christians, had its origins coming from the Greek, the Roman, the Latin borrowed Greek, the Roman loan word from the Greek Latin Christus, okay, which in English was Christians, okay, came from them. Okay, it was a name put upon them. So the Roman Imperial Church and their adherents adopted that name, right? And anyone that wasn't of that pagan side of it, that's what they were titled. Yeah, and he did some really horrible things. But as it says in the beginning of Tacitus, even Nero, in regards to Vespasian, had to turn his head. Okay, the little that is known about the life of Tacitus, right? Biographical note: Tacitus, born 55 to 117. He died at 117, right? Okay, and this is this page is book is a bit ripped when we got it. It's at the front of it, right? And it says this little that is known about the life of Tacitus is provided by allusions. He had allusions in his own writings, and that's what causes people doubts. The scholars, etc. And the letter suggested to him by his intimate friend Pliny the Younger. When Tacitus began his histories, somewhere about his 40th, 50th year, he related his life to the empire that was to be the burden of his narrative. I myself know nothing of Galba, of Orho, or of Vitellius, either from benefits or from injuries. I would not deny that my elevation was begun by Vespasian, augmented by Titus, and still further advanced by Domitian. I have reserved as an employment for my old age, should my life be long enough, a subject at once more fruitful and less anxious in the reign of the divine Nerva, one of the goddesses or something like that, an empire at Trajan, enjoying the rare happiness of times where we may think what we please and express what we think. The influential part of Tacitus' education took place during the early part of Vespasian's reign. It is possible that, like his friend Pliny, he was trained in rhetoric by Quintilian, for whom Vespasian had found the first public chair of eloquence at Rome. Tacitus himself records how zealous he was for achievement and how diligently he pursued and studied the leading orators. It is not known on what occasion he began his own political blah 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 blah. So Tacitus' success was as an orator was followed by marriage to the daughter of Julius Agricola. So he was a renowned success as an orator. As an orator. Okay. And by the time Tacitus returned to Rome, the full force of Domitian's tyranny had developed, because what we've read is that Tiberius stepped down for a couple of years, and he came across information about the Christ, heard about the Christ, and he started to believe it. He come back and he's going to preach about it, talk about it, whatever, to the Senate, etc. But they said, no, we're not going to have a word of it. And by the time Tacitus returned to Rome, the full force of Domitian's tyranny had developed. He later declared his father-in-law fortunate in death, since thereby escaped the sight of these last 3 years, during which Domitian, leaving now no interval or breathing space, but as it were with one continuous blow, drained the lifeblood of the Commonwealth, or Rome, right? He was so evil. He was killing the people and others. He was doing all these horrendous things. Tacitus was at the height of his powers, in his career, right? And a consulship was due him in the normal course of advancement. So that's like a decree of he should be deified, right? From the Senate. Yet unless he would risk his life, he could not abandon his office, seek advancement, or absent himself. The orator chose silence, broken only when Domitian demanded flattery as an accompaniment to his acts of terror. It's like, okay, I'm deified by decree, I'm a god, with this sort of crap, so you should bow down to me, worship me, all that sort of stuff. Okay? So he wanted all the people to worship him, pay him attention, etc. He was demanding flatulence, not flatulence, that's farting, right? Flattery from the people, okay? As an accompaniment to his acts of terror. He was more evil than Nero. The emperor enforced full attendance in the Senate when honourable men were being judicially murdered, so that he could see plainly whether you have any affection for me. That's what he's saying, right? Okay. He wants your praise, your attention, your worship. He was testing people out. Tacitus wrote of this experience. Even Nero turned his eyes away and did not gaze upon the atrocities which he ordered. With Domitian, it was a chief part of our miseries to see and to be seen. It's Nero talking about Domitian. He couldn't gaze upon the atrocities which Domitian had ordered. With Domitian, it was the chief part of our miseries to see and be seen, to know that our sighs were being recorded. So what he was doing was all testing, to try and get reactions. The assassination of Domitian in 96 brought unexpected release from this tyrann, from that tyrant, right? Which Tacitus said left some of the living no more than survivors of themselves. There can be no doubt of the effect upon him. We witnessed the extreme of servitude when the informer robbed us of the interchange of speech and hearing. So they were denied freedom of speech, being heard, etc. We should have lost memory as well as voice had it been as easy to forget as to keep silent. That he failed to maintain memory during that period of unnatural silence seems probable. He went out to speak out against him, right? Vespasian, etc. Since the opening pages of his Life of Agricola, 98, refer to his histories as having been begun shortly after the death of Domitian. It would hold, he said, the memory of past servitude and then give testimony to present happiness. As he worked on this book and later on the Annals, he extended his memory past the emperors of his childhood, the four who succeeded one another within 14 months after the death of Nero to the death of Augustus. These Roman emperors are all deified except for Tiberius. He refused it because he wanted it. He wanted the honours for the benefit, or that which befit men. Okay, he didn't want that. He didn't want to be deified, and so forth. And him being a orator, and having rhetoric, skilled in rhetoric, means that he had skill in the use of language, the power of pleasing or persuading, affected and exaggerated. Yeah, that's why they said he had illusions. Display of language, especially written. Okay, so that's directly from the biographical note of Tacitus and the Annals, the Histories by Britannica, great books. So that person who said they believed, Christus was the person they believed in, is wrong. He's got it wrong. So that's why he comes at us and tries to find something else to stick to us. Yeah. So these Romans, great borrowers of all things Egyptian and Greek, as were the Greeks or the Egyptians, etc. Okay. They wanted to be everything that the Egyptians were, but they got upset because there's one thing they couldn't be, and that was black. That's why you have a lot of musicians today that sing and dance in the same style as the American Negroes, the rappers, the pop stars, etc. They're trying to copy them, right? They're plagiarizing their style. It's a fact. Okay, and he says there were no disciples. If there were 12 disciples, if there were no 12 disciples, King Agrippa the Black would never have met Thaddeus or Adai and be healed. So there were 12 disciples, or else King Agrippa the Black would never have met Thaddeus or Adai and be healed. The histories of the original Church of the East wouldn't have been founded by the disciple Thomas. the original Church of the East wouldn't have been founded by the disciple Thomas, and there'd be no original ancient very old manuscripts hidden and preserved by the original ancient Church of the East, the one that he founded throughout the centuries, right? No Mark Royal, etc. in the video that we did. Okay, so there would be no Caesars like Tiberius. You wouldn't have to worry about them, because there would be no Caesars like Tiberius who was curious about their Christ. No Tacitus, orator, historian. No Josephus, supposedly a Jewish historian of the Flavian family, a Roman family. No Pilate, procurator. No church fathers that came later on through the Roman Imperial Church, Catholic Church. No archaeological digs to be found, digging up the evidence, any evidence, especially religion-wise, Judaism, the Jews, etc., etc. At no point anyone copying ancient manuscripts and discarding them in caves that were found, etc. And no reason for atheists to carry on and on and on and on. Lol. So, Guy, listen again to the video upload, solid evidence that Jesus Christ existed, at 6:09 to 6:13 of a 21:49 length video that we uploaded, right? Where the priest interviewed actually states the church in Jerusalem, not necessarily a building, but a gathering, a body of Christ, where all people gather into one place and they worship Christ, right? God, etc. Christ's church, he was probably referring to it as the spiritual church in Scripture as such, but there's mention of it being destroyed by the priest in their interview, right, with him and Stephen Missick, and that lady was interviewing him. Okay, but there is mention of it being destroyed, and here it is here. History of the Church, Volume 1, Philip Scarf. The Christians of Jerusalem, remembering the Lord's admonition, forsook the doomed city in good time and fled to the town of Pella in the Decapolis, beyond the Jordan in the north of Perea, where King Herod Agrippa II, before whom Paul once stood, opened to them a safe asylum. And old tradition says that a divine voice or angel revealed to their leaders the duty of flight. There, in the midst of a population chiefly Gentile, the church of the circumcision, it means circumcision of the heart according to the scriptures and revelations, etc. Right? It's no longer a circumcision of flesh, but it's a circumcision of the spirit. That's what it's mean. See, was reconstructed. Unfortunately, its history is hidden from us, but it never recovered its former importance. The history is not hidden; it's been ignored. Okay, you're not being told about it by the Western theologians, right? It's been completely ignored. They don't want you to know about it. Okay, they want you to totally rely on their Western theology, their Western terminology, their translations, transliterations, interpolations, etc., etc. They'll say, oh no, Christ never spoke Greek, never spoke Aramaic, he never spoke Hebrew, he was Greek. God was Greek, Jesus was Greek, all the apostles were Greek, all the disciples were Greek, Solomon was black, everybody was black, Jesus was black, all that sort of rubbish, right? Okay? So it's been hidden. Okay? There in the midst of a population chiefly Gentile, the church of the circumcision was reconstructed. Okay, that church of the Spirit, right, was reconstructed. They put up a fake one, right? Well, okay, here it says, in the midst of a population chiefly Gentile, the church of the circumcision, or the of the Spirit, yeah, was constructed. Unfortunately, its history is hidden from us, because that's what it's referring to, that particular church, right? But it never recovered its former importance. But it will. The Syrian church will rise again. The Syrian church, because these scriptures where they and the Egyptians and Israel play a major part towards the end of it all. When Jerusalem was rebuilt as a Christian city, its bishop was raised to the dignity of one of the four patriarchs of the East, not patriarchs of the West. Okay, these are like heads, right? Priests, high priests, heads of that church, right? Or a certain church, but it was a patriarchate of honour, not of power, and sank to a mere shadow after the Mohammedan invasion, because they came in under different caliphates and just harassed them, killed them, murdered them, martyred them, called them heretics, etc., etc., so they eventually fled, along with their texts. God himself, here you go, God himself destroyed the house in which he had thus far dwelt, in which Jesus had taught, and which the apostles had prayed. So, house, defined, definition from the King James Version Dictionary, av1611.com, KJV Dictionary definition, house. 1. In a general sense, a building or shed intended or used as a habitation of shelter or shelter for animals of any kind. But 2. An edifice or building appropriated to the worship of God, a temple, a church as the house of God. It could be either a temple, a church, a house. It's where they all congregated, they got together and they worshipped God. Okay? And here it is again, the dictionary. It therefore meant the congregation, the gathering of believers, the body of a spiritual church, and an actual meeting place. House they all gathered in with the disciples, Jesus and the disciples, etc. The 12, perhaps the 70 to 72 apostles, we had a big enough house, selected by Jesus himself. It's going on about how they were selected by him. They stood before him and he selected them. Okay? And he sent out 2 by 2, these chosen to all countries. They were told to go to by Jesus himself and preach, teach the good news. They were part of a church not built by hands. That's the futuristic church, right? A spiritual church, not a building, not built by hands. As Jesus stated in the scripture, supposedly, and that Peter was to be the rock, the foundation of that church in Jerusalem at the time. In Jerusalem. We have read of Victor N. Alexander's translation project, hinting at that somewhere. We can't remember if that is exactly where we first saw it, or somebody else, some other translator, right? Verifying that. So as we've suggested, church has dual meaning, a dual definition. The statement that there was a church, a house, a gathering place, a building in Jerusalem that was destroyed. It's destroyed by God. He rejected his peculiar people for their obstinate rejection of the Messiah. He demolished the whole fabric of the Mosaic theocracy. Okay, he's talking about the temple, the Pharisaic traditions, all this sort of stuff, associated exclusively with the tabernacle at first and afterwards with the temple. But in doing so, he cut the cords which he had hitherto bound, and according to the law of organic development, necessarily bound the infant church, that small church, that new church or body, congregation, gathering of believers, the 12 disciples, etc., as defined by us. Okay, because we define what church, house, etc. means to the economy of the Old Covenant and to Jerusalem as its centre. Effects of the destruction of Jerusalem on the Christian church. Okay? That's a title erroneously given those 12 disciples. If you look behind their being kosher, etc., then you may come across the name that they actually used in their language, okay, rather than this word Christian, which they believe was of Rome and pagan. No, didn't want to be referred to as that, or said to be of that, when a lot of them were like Roman adherents of the empirical church and mixing pagan ideas, right? Godless ideas. What is a church? Its role and purpose according to the Bible. Church is a translation of the Greek term ecclesia and is used in the New Testament to identify the community of believers in Jesus Christ. It literally means assembly, congregation, or meeting. Yeah? In a building, a house, a temple, or gathering, a congregation or coming together in one particular place for worship. Ask a damn Christian. They will tell you that, right? They will set you straight what it means. Okay? If someone say, oh no, it's a church, it was a church. We defined it, it's not necessarily a church. But go talk to one of them, be nice about it, and they'll explain it to you. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay? So, we, the Ministry of the Real Truth, hope that's opened your eyes to the real truth. Okay? And that this person, we're grateful for their comments and trying to come at us, trying to undermine us, but obviously, Carmilla, you lose, right? Because we overcame you, we will overcome you, right? because we are the ministry of the real truth, and our policy is honesty is our best policy. Okay, we did admit to making a few mistakes. Who does that out there? What church does that out there? And then corrects it, right? Hardly any. Very rarely any, right? Some churches will admit, oh yeah, damn, I made a mistake, sorry about that. Got my wording wrong, whatever. So, yeah, honesty is our best policy, and we strive to live by that, and we strive through that to bring you the real truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. But we put this policy up because we knew prior to this that we're going to get these people coming at us, these atheists, these agnostics, these agnostic atheists, these blah blah blahs, whatever, right, to try and undermine us, because we've seen it, you know, over the years with the other Christians, these Christian churches, these street preachers. It's still happening today. So we came prepared. Okay, many have tried to make something stick upon us, all this sort of stuff, you know, but we go and find the information, the sources. We provide the sources, the links, the established facts, evidence that proves itself evident. We look at, okay, is this writer irrefutable, infallible, etc., etc. We look at behind the scenes, what's the dirt on this person, is there any dirt, and we reveal it to all. But first we stop and we listen to what all of these three organized religions have to say: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, right? We listen to what they say first, and then we analyze it. Okay, so we do the research on it, because some imams say that Muhammad was mentioned in the original ancient Aramaic scriptures. No, it's a complete lie. He was mentioned as Ahmed. So we looked at it, and we can also ask a native-born Aramaic speaker from Mesopotamia, Syria, is it there? Because he's the one that translated from that language, right? So he should know, or somebody else to that effect. And they say no. It's like we went to Dr. James D. San Francisco, and asked him, because these Hebrew Israelites, US Hebrew Israelites, keep saying these names for God. It's from the Hebrew. Yahu Wahi Washi, Yahu Woo Woo Woo, Yahu Wai 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 Wai, Ya Ya Wai Wai Wai, whatever. Right? We thought, well, that sounds weird. And we realised, okay, you've got to look at two sides of the coin. When Bob Marley came out, a lot of people tried to identify with it besides smoking the weed, because they're looking for an identity. You know, the identity was lost. Maybe some had a culture, but some liked that, right? And whatever Bob Marley was saying. But the American Negro, etc., whoever, like, embraced it because of the weed, and also what he was saying. It was like a lot of what he was saying was actually fact, right? Historical fact. And he's trying to free the minds of the people, all that sort of stuff, right? Okay. So these US Hebrew Israelites are saying, oh, Solomon was black, God was black, Jesus was black, everybody was black, oh, they spoke this, we're the original Hebrew Israelites, all this sort of stuff, and yet they cuss at people on the street, call them crackers and all that sort of stuff, because of the history of the African slaves, right, the chattel slaves. Okay, so they've still got grudges. Okay, so they pick on the descendants of these Europeans, slave traders, etc., Dutch ones, etc., that did all this to their people. Yet some of them deny, I know we're not Africans, we're Hebrew Israelites. You're descendants of African American slaves. Yeah, it's logic and common sense. Why are you denying it? Oh, in favour of we are the Hebrew Israelites. You're not. You know, if you're not, you're saying we are the true Jews. You're not if you're not practicing their bar mitzvahs, their matzah bread making, all their custom rituals and stuff like that. Even a Jew will tell you that. You're not authentically Jewish. You're a wannabe. Okay? You're a cult. You're a fake movement. Okay? Sorry, but that's how it is. So we tell it how it is. We don't pull back our punches, right? All this sort of stuff. We don't try to pull the wool over your eyes. Okay? So, yeah, again, we get all these people coming at us. One, way back, years back, he gave us half the frickin' scriptures, right? And all this other junk in between, right? And we cleaned it up and then looked at it all and went bit by bit, line by line sort of thing, and explained to him, now, this is rubbish. What the hell is this rubbish? You know? But that's what they try to put across to you. Okay? So that's what we were about, the ministry of the real truth. To look at it all And we come to realise, because we used to go to church, attend churches, etc., like everybody else, and we felt there's something seriously wrong. Okay, they played this music to get you emotional, get your emotions up. The guy, the preacher, would be saying certain words to trigger you and calling for you to go to the front, and then people would come around your house like deceive you. My friend just came from Israel. He knows all that stuff you're talking about. We'd go see him, You hop in a car, end up in the church. Or, I'll shout you Wendy's or something, right? Or Burger King or McDonald's or whatever. Yeah, hop in a car, we'd go get some for you. It's on me, we'd go end up in the church. That sort of deceit. Okay? Because they got this hidden motive, right? To pick you up, take you to the church, take you home, pick you up, come in your house, control you, try and convince you, okay, to give all your money to the church, put it in a plate, give it all, right? Give 10% of your hard-earned wages, because they say, if you plant a seed, give us $1,000, plant a seed, you'll get this big harvest. It never happens, right? Because it's all prosperity rubbish. It's all designed to make them rich. The gullible give to the rich, and they get nothing in return. That's why they throw money at the preachers, because they're telling them, throw money at us, give us lots of money, and you'll get return, right? Because God says in the Bible, right? Well, this was a guy even gave his wallet, all his money in his wallet, and this priest, this black preacher, whatever, he's a preacher, he's running around kicking it and rolling in it and all this sort of stuff. Money, 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 Okay, so that's enough of us. We hope this opened your eyes to the real truth, whole truth that we're bringing you. Okay, honesty is our best policy, and we believe in chivalry. And if we make a mistake, we are human. That proves that we are human when we make mistakes, and we try to correct them as we find them, etc., etc. So we hope that you enjoyed this video again, and if you did, please subscribe to our channel, give us a like, add your comments below, but be nice. We try to be nice, but sometimes we get a bit hot-headed. See, who admits to that, right? We're human. As Willie Shakespeare said in Shakespeare Speak, to err is human, but to forgive is divine. Yeah? So, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, add your comments, and then go share this video with all your family, friends, and others. We may leave it in its entire length, or we may cut it up into parts so that you can listen to it in portions and absorb it more. Because if you have too much information, like 2 hours of a video, it's not going to all go in your brain, is it? Okay, that's scientifically proven. You're not going to absorb it all, So it's better to break it down. Like, you don't even have 30 seconds total focus attention, like drift off and look somewhere else. That's why we have all the blurring over here, so you're not like looking sideways and going, I wonder what that video is about. Let's go over there, right? You're concentrating, you're focusing on what we have to say.